calling on customers has become such a standard part of most businesses that we tend to take it for granted. We have our habitual way of approaching customers and don't often think about whether this approach is as effective as it could be. We assume that people who don't buy our products or who are not even interested in hearing about them just aren't the right prospects for us. But what if it wasn't the customer? What if it was the way we approach customers, especially new ones, that's not as effective as it could be? And what could we learn from a master salesperson that could help us 10x our sales success? I'm Jane Singer, and thank you for taking the time to join me here today on A Seat at the Table, where we talk to leading executives, entrepreneurs, and innovators who share their insights, experience, and outlook on business, technology, and leadership. It's wonderful to have you as part of our international community that now includes industry professionals in over 100 countries. Today I'm speaking with Navid Momeni, CEO of Sales Guru Global and best-selling author of How to Become a Sales Master. Navid is known as a sales magician. He has a rock-solid 10-plus year track record of success in identifying and pursuing new business, which has made him a top-ranking sales leader. In this episode of A Seat at the Table, Navid talks about the best methods for prospecting in 2022, post-COVID, to increase sales, why proper handling of objections is such a big deal in sales, and things you should never say during a qualification call. Before we get started, if you're a supply chain executive who'd like to finally put an end to information overload and get a concise, fact-based summary of key market developments and shifts, as well as sharp insights as to what is likely to impact sourcing in the coming months, then the current situation in sourcing is exactly what you're looking for. To learn more, head on over to thecurrentsituation.net. That's thecurrentsituation.net, where you can find all of the details. And I'll also put the links in the show notes. Now let's sit down with Navid and learn how to start closing more sales. I'm really glad that you're able to come onto the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, Navid. I'm really happy that you're able to join us because I love the topic that you're talking about. I think that we've had so many other things happening in the past couple of years. We've forgotten about the business of selling. We've sort of gotten sidetracked. I think we've gotten lost in some of the technology and the terminology, and we've sort of been distracted from some of the fundamentals about what it takes to, be effective at driving sales.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The way that the market has shifted and has changed, especially since COVID started, it's just the companies that were able to immediately adjust themselves, they're still around. The companies that they couldn't, they're not in the picture anymore, right?
Yes.
And I think it's very important, especially for the salespeople to understand how things have changed.
Right.
Right. And also for the salespeople, I always use the example of when there is when there is a new iPhone, you see people go from a night before, it happens here in Toronto, they go sleep in the streets until the store opens so they can get the newest phone. When there's a new PlayStation, people do the same, right?
Right.
Like why? Because for us human beings, we try to keep upgrading the technology that we use.
Right.
And sometimes I tell them, especially for salespeople, when was the last time you upgraded yourself? Right?
Yeah.
Because they keep sticking to whatever they learned, the tenured ones, whatever they learned many, many years ago. And they forget that upgrading the technology you use, you have to upgrade yourselves, right?
Exactly.
So that's one thing that you see separates the top performers, the quota hitters versus, the average salespeople.
I think that's a really good point because, as you're pointing out, we tend to focus on all the external things that we can upgrade, but we forget that fundamentally you're at the center of the equation. So if you don't improve yourself, none of the other things are really going to make as much of a difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, what kind of shifts or any changes have you seen? When we talk about upgrading ourselves, about changing the way we do things, have you seen changes in the way buyers want sales executives to approach them? Are there things that sales execs need to change? What's your take on that?
So that's a great question. So I think when you compare it now to before, right? When you compare it to before pandemic, right?
Right.
Obviously, it was way easier to get hold of the decision makers. It was very easier to get hold of the prospects, right?
Right.
And as you know, so many people started working remote,
yes.
right? And also so many companies, in order to survive, they had to go and lay off some people, right? So that means, let's say that CFO that still was a busy guy before COVID, don't get me wrong,
Right.
but maybe he had to lay off, a few people in his departments. That means more workload for him, right?
Yes.
So they are not as available as they used to be,
Interesting.
and they have a very, very short time. So, like, when the person is giving you 20 minutes in their calendar, you better be ready for it,
Right.
right? You better be prepared. You better be ready for it. You better, you should do your homework, your preparation for the meetings, for the calls, for that 20 minutes. And I think so many people, salespeople, don't really understand how important that is. That they think, oh, it's just a call. I will just try to do my discovery or my intro,
Right.
and they just show up with no game plan, right?
Right.
So that's one thing. And I think the second thing is they do now lots of the research, these prospects. So they do the research before buying from you, right? And
Yes.
it's not like 20 years ago that you say, oh, I don't know, there was no Google, or they just say, okay, tell me about your company. No, now they have done some sort of homework about your company, right? So this is not a time for you to come and talk about, our company is number one in 20 different categories.
Right.
So we work with clients like this. People don't really care.
Right.
All they care about is just tell me how you can help me to solve some of my problems, some of the pain points that we have, and show me something that I haven't seen before. Just tell me how you can simplify my life. Just show me what can you do for us to have that competitive edge over our competitors, right? I don't need to know. I mean, good for you guys. Sometimes I make a joke. I say, I've sat through demos where the person comes literally the first 10 minutes. So this is who we are. We have been around since 1942. We want this, we want that. At some point, I'm like, you know what? Great. Do you want me to get up and give you a round of applause? Like,
Right.
just tell me what you have for me, right?
Yes.
So I think that's also very important to make sure that it's not about you, it's about them, right? For people to understand that.
I really like the way you framed that. It's not about you, it's about them, because you're absolutely right. How many of these meetings do start with that, right? They make you
Right.
sit through sometimes they'll tell you, but sometimes you have to sit through the company video. And, they just tend to be, well, not necessarily the best use of the customer's time, shall we say. So I like the fact that you said you have to start with, I guess, what's often classically referred to as the I help statement, right?
Yeah.
To zero in on what you can do for them. So you want to, if I'm hearing you correctly, you want to start from that point.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I always tell salespeople, when you're calling, always lead with the problem.
Okay.
Always make sure that, you're talking about two, three things that your organizations do to
Right.
help people with A, B, C. As you said, I help people, to remove this, to overcome this, to achieve this, right? So, yeah. So, and again, it's also for salespeople to understanding that so many people are working from home. So phone calling shouldn't be your only way of getting a hold of your prospects, right?
Right.
Especially because of COVID, we are like, I think there was a study that done recently that before COVID, the number of touch points, I believe it was between 12 to 17
Oh, wow.
to get hold of a prospect. And after COVID started, the number went up to 22 to 29 times or something,
Oh,
right?
wow.
So
That's huge.
what it would tell you is what's like, you have to reach out to that person through, call, email, LinkedIn message, Twitter, I don't know, Instagram, Facebook. I tell people, and I use this example. I was in a podcast last month that at the rep that she decided to send the handwritten notes to a prospect, just saying, hey, I just want to make sure you're okay. It's COVID time. I'm just checking on you, and this was after her trying all different channels. And like a day after, she got a response back,
Wow.
right? So again, another thing I always tell salespeople, thinking outside of the box, right? Like, always, picture this, that prospect would receive so many calls from your competitors, so
Right.
many emails, so many LinkedIn messages. So what is one thing that you should do that, your competitors are not doing? So if that means, again, sending a handwritten note, if that means send, I don't know, like a letter, if that means like try to, I don't know, find find a way to get hold of that prospects, which again, that's another thing. That's still so many salespeople say, oh yeah, today I made like $50. I'm like, that's great. But what was your get through percentage? What was your reach rate? Right.
Right.
And then they say, well, only one or two people. And I left 30 voicemail messages. Right.
Wow.
And that's not a smart way of doing things. Right. I always tell people you have to work hard and smart at the same time. And
Yes.
sometimes I would want my reps to make 10, 15, $20. But
Right.
as long as they have a higher, get through percentage reach rate, then I'm happy. So that's another thing, the channel that you're focusing on. So just make sure that, you're reaching out to your prospects through different channels.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I think that we tend to get stuck in doing things the same way, that we've sort of gotten a rut. Now, I just have a question, because you talk about jumping in by telling the client how you can solve problems, and yet you sometimes run the risk of sort of presuming what the problem is, right? So
Right.
you could pardon me, you could end up, right, pitching a solution to a problem, and at the end the client says, well, that isn't really the problem, it's actually something else, and you're like, oh, well, could we just erase that? So how can you sort of, on the one hand, ascertain what the problem is? Like you said, you only have about 20 minutes of somebody's time, and you really
Right.
you do want to get down to that solution. How might you approach that? We're going to take a quick break now, and then we'll be right back.
We were hiring when we were making 50 to 100K monthly losses.
And why? Welcome to episode 1.
I can't think of a single founder who's been around for a decent amount of time in business who hasn't had their tunnel of year. This was that year. We're going to be okay, yeah, Sheree. Some are going to hear this and think, you TDP. But hear me out. You only have to do the math to understand that very soon we were $500,000 down.
That's a great question, Jane. So one exercise that I do with my teams or the companies that I go and help them with my sales consulting company, Sales Group Global, is I always tell the AEs, you have to come out as an expert in that person's industry. So
Right.
you have to come out as a consultant, right? Professional sales consultant, right? And you need to understand, before even reaching out to that person, what are some of the top 5, top 8 problems that people in that industry are facing? And you have to do, obviously, your research, your homework, right? And then based on those problems that you see there, then you look at your products and your solution. What are the, top 5, top 8 things, top problems that you solve with your products or your services, right? And then when you're reaching out to that prospect, right? Or when you're sending your cold email. So again, immediately, I always tell them, I don't want to hear you saying that, your company does this. You guys have been winning the awards for the past 20 years and all that. Now, Mr. Customer John, these are the top 3 things that we solve with our products for people in your industry, for our companies in your industry, right? If you're dealing with these top 3 problems, great. All I need is, 5 to 10 minutes of your time to show you how we can help you. If you're not dealing with these problems, right, then there are other areas that our company also specializes, which is this. Now,
Right.
and then you go with a very, very simple question, right? Are you today dealing with any of these problems that I mentioned, category B? Jane, you know what? Yes, category B. Or, you know what, Jane? No, we are not. Okay. You know what? That's a good news, because then that shows you're ahead of your competitors by this much, right? So congratulations. That means you have been running your company perfectly, blah, blah, blah. Now, I would love to know, what are some of those problems? Because based
Right.
on my experience, I have worked with companies in your industries that they told me these are the top problems they're dealing with. So if you can help me to understand this better, if you can tell me something, that I can see if there's a fit between what we offer, our products, and some of those problems, right? So basically, it's very being transparent. But usually, if you have done your homework, if you have done your prep, if you're, a consultant, if you know some of the problems in their industry, then those problems are either sitting in that category A problems, we say, or category B problems, right? And usually people open up and usually they say, you know what, these are the problems that we are currently facing. And then you take the conversation from there, right?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's great. I think that's really a brilliant way to approach it because you're able to zero in on what the customer needs without wasting a lot of their time. And like you said, if none of the things you solve are problems they have, then neither side needs to be spending a lot of time. It's better just to move on.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you talked about having a game plan. And again, it becomes more challenging, I suppose, when that amount of time that you have is short, right? I mean, you have to be able to jump in, get things going, and be able to do it before the person needs to get off the call. How would you approach that? Maybe tell us a little bit about the kind of game plan that you might use.
That's a great question. So the game plan has to be very, very clear, right? And sometimes I see all these articles and some people come on LinkedIn and they share stuff and they make it very, very complicated, right?
Right. Yeah.
Your game plan has to be very clear, right? And, when people come to me and they say, oh, yeah, this person is working on this opportunity and their close plan is, I personally, when I hear that word, I dislike it because we shouldn't really say, what's your close plan, right?
Right.
I tell people, you have to come up with the term of my help plan, right? Because selling is helping, right? So I tell people, so what's your help plan? I ask my reps, what's your help plan, right? So when we talk about the game plan, so you need to know from the moment that you get that lead, right? What's your game plan that when you're reaching out to that person, right? From the moment that you make that first call, if it's a cold call, you have less than 10 seconds to capture your prospect attention, right? What are you starting your pitch with, right? And then let's say once you book a qualification call, what are the type of the questions that you need to ask to make sure that if this is a qualified lead or not, right?
Yes.
And then when it comes to your discovery, same thing when you have to dig deeper to understand exactly what is happening with that person's business, where they are today, where they want to be in the future, right?
Right.
And as a salesperson, how can you help them to get from point A to point B? But also at the end, when it comes to your demo, again, what's your game plan, right?
Yes.
And I think that's one thing that I see a lot, that these 2 hours demos, people sitting there, and sometimes I feel bad, especially now that it's virtual. Sometimes I've gone to companies where I shadow the salesperson, and I see after 20 minutes, you see 7 people are on the call, and you see 4 of them, they turn off their camera.
Right.
They turn off their camera, they go get the tea, get their coffee, or checking their work emails or doing something else. And for me, that's what I'm going to focus on today, because I can talk about game plan for your cold calling, for your qualification, for your discovery. But the game plan for your demo, it has to be, first of all, between your discovery and your demo, we have this form that I call an account information form, where it's a form that you send to your prospect. That Mr. Prospect, before this demo, right? I just want to make sure that I have some additional information so I can have the best customized demo, right? And again, customized demo. Not the same demo that you use for everyone, customized demo. Excellent. And in that account information form, it asks, again, who are the people that are going to attend the call, right? And what are the top 3 things that you would like to see in that demo, right? And I even share my agenda in that form with them in advance. So here's the agenda. Here's the 5 things that I'm going to cover in the demo. And I leave 6, 7, 8 blank. And then at the end, I say, I left those 3 areas blank. Please add whatever you would like to see in addition to everything that I put in there, right? So that's one thing. So make sure that you do that one, because it makes your life and your solution engineer a lot easier. So you know exactly when you go to the demo, exactly what are the areas that you need to focus on with your solution engineer, right? Versus just going, Mr. Customer, let me show you now 200 features. Right. This. That one you're selling based on features, not based on the problem, right?
Yes, exactly.
And that's not a right way of doing the demo. You're not connecting to their problems, right? So that's very important. Sending that account information form. And obviously, when it's a demo day, when you start the call, you just, pull up that form and just confirm it with them. So this is what I had, and this is what you added. And then let's say if there are 3 people in the call, right? Mike, Jane, Ashley, can you please confirm with each one of you? Is this the right agenda for you? Am I missing something? Would you like to see anything else? And then you can start. Now, once you start, so you have to make sure that, you just tell them that the last thing that I want to do is walk you through 2 hours, 3 hours presentation.
Right,
I'm going
exactly.
to cut this down to 30 minutes to 45 minutes maximum, right? And I'm going to leave, obviously, 5 to 10 minutes questions at the end. However, I want you to ask questions throughout the demo, right? So it's so many people when they are doing the demo, and I don't know, they show a feature and they're like, does it make sense? Any questions, right? Does it make sense? Any questions? That's
Right.
like weak. That's not powerful, right? Like for you, again, as a sales professional, you should, when you show that feature, then when you have to read the room, then that's the time for you to ask, what questions do you have now?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
That's one way. What questions do you have now? And another thing that is very important when you're doing that demo, throughout the demo, you have to make sure you're asking lots of affirming questions, right? You're asking questions to see, is it actually at first, are they here in the room with me, right?
Right. Right.
Because, or they're distracted. B, are they seeing the true value of our products, our services? So many times I tell people, just stop and then say, you showed a feature, right? And just say, hey, Mike, do you see how this specific feature can help you to reduce your churn rate, by 20%, right? And you just say the question and you go quiet and you let them to tell you if they actually can picture their point B using your products and services. Or you can always say, hey, so based on everything that I've showed you so far, if you had this product today, how would you use it? How would you implement it for your business, right? So some questions where you can see that they are engaged, right? And this is very important to make sure that you do this throughout the call, right? Versus people say check-ins, versus saying, oh, does it make sense? What are you going to get when the person says yes? Oh, great, the person says yes. Let me continue my demo. No. That's the time that you say, hey, let me actually see if this person is engaged, this person truly understands the value of our products and services. If you see you're not getting that, if you say, hey, do you see how this can help you with this, A, B, C? And the person goes, I tell people, stop the demo. Don't continue.
Right.
Go back to your discovery notes again and see how you can remind them about some of the problems that they shared with you.
Right.
Some of the problems that you discovered, because so many times the problems that they tell you they have, it's not a real problem. They don't really know what's the real problem they have.
Yes.
It's like I use an example in my book that I went to my doctor, 2014. And I'm like, can you give me medication for my throat? And my doctor was like, your throat? I'm like, yeah. She was like, what's happening? I'm like, I was having food. And almost 2 days, every time I tried to eat food, I was having a hard time to swallow. And she was like, okay, so you want a medication for your throat? And I'm like, yeah. And she was like, no, you don't need a medication for your throat. She asked me 7, 8 questions. And then, we did, some dysphagia tests and endoscopy and all that. And she was like, no, you got gastritis and acid reflux. The problem is not your throat, right?
Right.
So many times the prospects, they tell you, yeah, I'm dealing with this problem, this problem, this problem. And salespeople, they write it down and they're like, oh, I got the problems. And then I tell them, no, you didn't. That's not the real problem they have. You can only rely on what they tell you as the problems they have, right? So it's very important to make sure that if you are in a demo and if you see that has to be part of your game plan. If you're not getting that buying signals, if you're not seeing that they truly see the value of your product, just stop. Don't continue with the demo and try to go back to your discovery again. And, at the end, clear next step. And what I mean by clear next step, make sure that you know exactly from this, you confirm, you validate, you make sure that you were able to cover everything they saw, right? Everything that John, Jane, Ashley, everything that you told me through the discovery, you put it in the account information form in our agenda. Again, I want to make sure that I was able to cover all of them. Yes, you were. Great. For the next step, we're going to go for sending you an order form. we are going to schedule a call. Don't leave it. Don't finish the call without scheduling another call. I always tell people, don't do that. Even if they say, oh, I don't have my calendar in front of me. It's okay. Don't worry. We put something tentative in your calendar, my calendar, so we have it. And then you can get back to me after this meeting or tomorrow, confirm that. So always set up that next meeting and then take it from there. Now it's walking you through order form and welcoming you to our family, to our organization as a long-term partner. I always tell people, don't say that, we are going to close this. Always say you're there to build a long-term partnership.
You've made so many great points, and I really like the fact that you point out that when you're selling, you want to take a more, what you might call a diagnostic approach, right? I love your example of a doctor, because the doctor is doing discovery throughout to try to get to the root of the problem so they can provide the right solution. Whereas when you're in sales, and I've also been in sales, a big part of my career, so I completely relate to what you're saying. You're so focused on making the sale that you're not really listening and asking the right probing questions to make sure that you're providing the right solution. And it's difficult when you have targets to make, not to want to focus on the end result. But I think what you're saying is important, because you're talking about building that long-term relationship and being able to provide people with the right product for the right problem.
Absolutely.
Now, I think that what you're saying is really interesting, and we've done that for so long in person. I think most people who come from traditional sales are used to, at some point, having that face-to-face call, right? But the pandemic made that impossible, so we had to sell over Zoom, and it looks like we will now be continuing to do that at least part of the time, because obviously it cuts a lot of travel budget, and it is more efficient in the sense of you can see more people in a shorter amount of time. But on the other hand, if you're used to selling in person, and if clients are used to somebody selling in person, it seems so difficult to create that rapport and to be able to, easily go into a demo without it feeling so, for lack of a better word, salesy. How do you manage that? What have you found to be the best practices now that it seems like we're going to be doing a fair bit of our selling over Zoom?
Right. Great question, Jay. One thing that immediately comes to my mind is empathy. Right. So I told, when COVID started, my team, I never forget, we went to one of our rooms and we were there were lots of unknowns, right? There were lots of unknowns. And one of them asked me the same question. One of my reps, he said, me, I'm a meeting in person type of guy, right?
Yeah.
And what am I going to do over, Microsoft Teams and Zoom, right? And I told them that connect to people. This is the best time to connect to people, and meaning that it's not going to be like, hey, Mr. Customer, since now it's, things are over the Zoom, so let's start and all that. And the best salespeople, they connect to their customer, right? In a level where so many times they even get to the point that they text message each other. One of my best reps right now, that's what he does. He's amazing. He's amazing at that. He connects to his customers, and when they're in a call, like literally the first 5-10 minutes, he's not even talking about the products. He's not even talking about anything. Hey, how's everything? With your family. I know earlier you mentioned that your daughter was not feeling well, and I literally asked your customers, how are they doing? How are they dealing with with this whole, COVID situation or pandemic, and just try to connect people and show them that you truly care about them, right? So I used to be one of those account executives where I used to write down my prospects and clients' birthday in my calendar, and just a simple gesture of sending them a gift card or something, right?
Right.
So that's very important, and make sure that when you're in a call, don't let that to stop you from building a rapport and relationship with everyone on the call, right? I have seen so many times salespeople like, oh, here's my champion, and that person is a final decision maker. I don't care about the other 4 in the room, in the Zoom call. And I tell them that's the wrong approach. Instead of saying, that person is my champion, your champion has to be everyone on that call, right?
Right.
Because everyone on that call, they have a say to either go with your product or not, right? So making sure that you're doing that. And also, in advance. Sometimes I tell people, I tell my reps, do your research about that person. So meaning that if you go to that person's LinkedIn page, you can easily see that person's activity, right? The past, I don't know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2, 3 months. So if you see the person is very dropping comments on, I don't know, articles or groups related to charity works, right? Make sure that you connect with that person through that level. Hey, Mike, I was looking at your LinkedIn page and I noticed you were doing a 10K, for a Scotiabank run or whatever. That's amazing. I'm actually preparing myself, for a 15K next week as well. And, show that person you have actually done your homework, your research about them, not only their organization, but also that individual, right? So these are very important. And many times instead of just saying, hey, I'm just calling to see what's the status of the contract, just, hey, I'm just calling to make sure everything is good. If I were able to answer all of your questions, I know you say you're going on a conference to Tampa, but by the way, make sure to check these 3 restaurants. I checked it with my friends that I was there last time. So make it real, be natural, make it real. And just, don't let that thinking of, oh my God, it's over Zoom, right? What do I do? No, don't imagine as if you're in person, right?
Right.
So everything that you do, when you're making that conversation, when you're making eye contact, when you show you're engaged, your body, there's difference. I see sometimes I tell people, you're sitting on your chair and you're like this, you're passing that energy to your prospect, right?
Right.
So it's very important to make sure that, you're talking with passion, right?
Yeah.
You're showing that, how enthusiastic you are and that you really want to build a long-term partnership with them.
Yes. Yeah, I think that's really important. We just tend to get caught up in the momentum of just trying to get to that sale. And I think you're right. You have to be willing to make the investment of your time to do the homework, to do the follow-up, to take care of people in between the calls.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, I see it, the best salespeople, every company that I've worked for and every company now with my sales consulting company that I help their sales teams, I can always see that that's one of the things that separates the top salespeople versus the average ones, right? Because, the top ones, they said, hey, COVID happened, things are happening over Zoom, so what?
Right.
I'm still going to help my customers.
Yes.
I'm still going to build that relationship with them. I'm still going to show them actually what does it mean when I tell them building that long-term, partnership. What does it mean? How am I going to help them to get from point A to point B? And how am I going to be beside them throughout this entire, process, right? So it's, it's clear. It's those best salespeople, they are amazing at doing that.
Yes. And it does take a commitment to do, but if you can do it well, you do build these lifetime relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now, you talk about that there are things specifically that you should never say during a qualification call. I'm curious, what might those be?
That's a great question, Jane. So obviously through the qualification call, and I might say, if I say this, it might hurt, some people's feelings. So I personally, I'm not a fan of, some of these qualification methodologies like bands, right? And, I tell people that it was good many, many years ago, right? But, today I believe there are some questions that you shouldn't say, right?
Okay.
So when you ask someone, what's your budget, right? Like immediately it's one of those questions that would look like people really usually get defensive about that, right?
Right. Yes.
And I believe if you truly show the value of your products and services, you should never ask about that budget.
Right.
Because that prospect, they have done their homework, before coming to you. They know that they have put certain, dollar amounts aside,
Right.
for your products or services, right? So, I tell people, some of these close-ended questions, right, where you don't really get anything by asking that question, or
Yes.
I call them, dead-end questions, right? Are you happy with the products you're using? So the person would say yes or no.
Right.
most of the time, if they say, let's say, especially if it's a cold approach, if they say yes, where are you going to take the conversation after?
Yeah,
Oh, what are
exactly.
you happy about? No, right? But these are some of the things that I tell people, instead of questions like that, right? It's like I told one of my friends that recently said, hey, you know what? Like I want to go, get into the business of selling cars and all that. And, we were talking about that. I said, how would you feel if I ask you, are you happy with the car you're driving right now? And he said,
Right.
that's a great question. I said, no, that's an awful question. Because if you say yes, then I cannot take that conversation anywhere else. And he said, what should
Right.
I do instead? I
Yeah.
said, instead, I should ask you, or you should ask me, hey, how often your cars, break down, right? In the middle of the street. How often do you have to take your car to the dealership for maintenance stuff, right? How much do you usually spend on those type of issues? What are the things when it comes to, let's say, I don't know much about the cars, but when you fill up your tank, how long does it take you to go from Toronto to Niagara Falls? Blah blah blah. I ask you these questions. After question 6 or 7, you say, "Oh wow, I thought I was happy with my car, but
Right.
it looks like I'm losing so much money driving this car, and it looks like like this is not the perfect car for me, right?" So it's the same thing during those qualifications. You need
Yes.
to ask questions for the person to start thinking, oh, wow, we put $30,000 budget for this solution. But after asking some of these questions that this person asked me, we might need to sit down with your C levels and increase that number, because so many times I tell people that truly, truly, if you show the value of your products, there's no need to talk about, the budget. Another thing is the problems, right? When
Right.
salespeople come to the meetings and say, so tell me about your problems, right?
Right.
And again, that's another thing. I tell them, these are the things that you should have already known from some of your research about that person's industry. That usually, one way to start that conversation is, Mr. Customer, I have worked with lots of organizations in your industry, and these are the top 3 to 5 problems they have.
Right.
So if you can help me to understand this better, which one of these problems do you have? And the person goes, oh, wow. Like immediately when we say building credibility, they
Right.
go, oh, wow. That's one thing you did that the other 40 people who did the demo or qualification or discovery, they haven't done. So you have actually done your research, about me. You're an expert in our industry about, our language, right? That's one
Right.
thing that immediately separates you from other people, right? So when you're in
Exactly.
that qualification calls, you have to make sure that you are not immediately qualifying them because they don't have the budget or the timeline is 2 years from today. You show me exactly what you have. And if you can show me, instead of moving forward, in 2 years, if I move forward in the next 2, 3 months, how much money I can save or how much money I can gain. Same goes with the timeline, right?
Right.
I can move that timeline if you show me something that can really add lots of value to me, right? And
Yes.
so you have to make sure you're not asking dead end questions, right? And you have to make sure that one thing that I see is that salespeople shouldn't do is when they make it look like an interrogation, right?
Right.
And I've seen not sometimes, I've seen that a lot happening, where the person goes, "Oh yeah, so what? So can tell me about this, tell me about that. Now, what about this? What about that?" And people go, "So, hold on a second. So this is like I have to give, 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 give.
Right.
So why am I here again?" Right?
Yeah.
So make sure that you set those expectations in advance, right? Like, Mr. Customer, in the next 8 minutes, I'm going to ask you 6 questions. The reason I'm going to ask you these questions, because I need to understand your point A, I need to understand your point B, and then
Right.
I need to make sure if with our products and services, I can get you from point A to point B, right? So don't go with, boom, 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 another question, another question, another question, right? So make sure to set those expectations as well. And obviously, the last thing that I can add here, Jane, and it's very, very important. Please, please, please make sure that you're with them. You're truly with them. And what I mean by that is, especially over Zoom, one thing that I personally hate when I see, and it's a huge, huge, huge disappointment when I see it, is when I'm having a conversation with someone and it's a qualification call, intro call, or discovery, and I hear a Slack message came, right? And the person just for a second, like I've had that happen. For 10 seconds, the person is kind of reading the message. And then
Right.
I can see the person's in the middle of the call is actually opening another tab or something. They're doing something else. That's a huge, huge blowout to your opportunity. So
Absolutely.
don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very easy. That's one of the big problems. You talked about engagement, and you're absolutely right. And it is difficult when you're doing, I mean, it's bad enough. I've been in face-to-face meetings with people where they're constantly checking their phone, which is, well, we won't go there. But I think that when you're on Zoom, like you said, it's very easy to have multiple tabs open, to be looking down at your phone. So you're absolutely right to point that out, that you absolutely have to be on your game to keep that engagement. You have to really work at
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
Now, I just made a note over here. I wanted to remind myself to ask you, one of the key ways, particularly in B2B, that people try to reach out and find new prospects, connect initially with prospects, is over LinkedIn. And, you know, it's so challenging because on the one hand, you do want to connect with people, right? And you do want to find out if something you have could solve a problem they have. But it's tough not to come across as feeling either salesy or predatory.
Right.
From your experience, and I know everyone's experience is different, but from your experience, how do you tackle LinkedIn without making the person you're reaching out to sort of feel like defensive?
That's a great question, Jane. And I think there's a part of my book, there's a chapter that I talk about unique ways of prospecting, and one part of the book I talk about how to do it through LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some of the notes are, I just put it out there immediately.
Right.
Don't send the default LinkedIn request.
Right.
Just click on connect. Make sure you always have a customized message. Don't sell on your first message, right? Don't sell the same copy and paste message, because that's the way when the person not going to accept you,
Right.
you accept your connection request. If the person accepts your connection request, that doesn't mean the person is telling you that, now you can pitch me your products, right? So don't, as soon as you see someone accepted your connection request, don't pitch, right? And just, customize message. Hey, Mark, I noticed we are both, part of this industry, and you have a very impressive background. I would love to have you as part of my LinkedIn family. Something simple, right? And then I tell people, I always do that. Look at that person's activity, right? Do research about them, about their company, their activity, if they have been part of, different discussion groups, right? And let's say, I don't know if you're selling an ERP solution or something, and that, Mark, in the financial industry, these are the clients you have had over the years, you have been able to help them with, stuff. Then after, a week or two, Mark, this is not a sales message or technique or anything.
Right.
I just want you to know that I work, with lots of organizations in your industry. And again, same thing that you mentioned earlier. And I help them with ABC, right? Please, at any time, feel free to reach out to me if you think there is any value in these products and services that we have here. And I would love to set up a quick call and, learn more about you.
Right.
Simple.
Yeah.
I'm not here, to, pitch you or anything. I'm here to help you. This is how I help other people in your industry, and I'm here to help you, right? And just like that. These are some of the problems that I solve with our products and services for organizations in your industry. Let me know if you're dealing with any of these problems. Just simple. So you don't need to send me 200 LinkedIn messages.
Right.
I get like between 20 to 30 LinkedIn messages per day.
Right. I can imagine.
Out of 20 to 30, I don't read them, or even if I read them, I don't see any value in it.
Yeah.
To even reply, because I can tell it's the same copy and paste message.
Right.
In the past, I think 3 years, I've replied maybe to one LinkedIn message. And that one LinkedIn message, the person actually did his homework about me, about my company, about, what I might need, right? And that's it, right? So make sure that, not because it's LinkedIn, you can immediately send that connection request, pitch me like whatever it is, send it that copy paste message, right? Like very nice structure message, this is what I do, this is what I help people with, and if I can help you, let me know. And all I need, by the way, is like clear ask. All I need is 5 minutes of your time.
Right. Yeah, I think that's great. I think it cuts to the chase. It doesn't waste anybody's time. It doesn't feel like you're sort of encroaching on their privacy or so forth.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it's good. Now, you're known for consistently shattering expectations, for outperforming most everyone on the sales team. What do you do differently than other people? I mean, what's your secret sauce?
Well, when I were an account executive, I used to say that, because I come with a background in soccer, right?
Right,
When you're pro at something, especially if you're an athlete, it's lots of discipline, right?
right,
And obviously commitment. And always also you have that thing that you always want to compete and you always want to be the best, right?
right.
And I had the same sense when I was an account executive, right?
Yeah,
And I always wanted to be the best. And in order to do that, to be the best salesperson on the floor,
right.
you always have to make sure that you're doing the extra that other people don't, right? So
Yes,
meaning that, I used to work very closely, with my leaders, right? I used to, listen to lots of podcasts, reading lots of books, but I used to shadow our top salespeople. I was always open to learning, right?
right,
And one thing that salespeople don't really understand is because they think at some point, because they are hitting quota for a month or two or three, then they feel, oh, they don't need to learn anymore. Everything, well,
right,
their approach is good, and then that's the time that they start, going down, meaning that they start
right,
not performing at the same level. So I always wanted to make sure that I used to do lots of my preps on a Saturday and Sunday. So meaning that when I was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I knew exactly who I needed to go to call, how many qualifications I had. My calendar was full, right? So that was another thing, that it was all about my activity level. It was very high, right? So today as a leader, what I tell salespeople is the same thing that I mentioned earlier. You have to work hard and smart, but you need to be smart about the way you do prospecting, about the way that you conduct your qualification calls, your discoveries, your demos, and you need to have a strong pipeline. That's very simple, right? So that pipeline, that should be that's your home, right? So you need to
yes,
make sure
yeah,
that pipeline is clean. Your home should be always clean. So why not your pipeline? So you have to make sure your pipeline is clean. You have real opportunities in there, and you have to make sure that you're always prospecting, right? You're always prospecting. And that's what I tell people. You see, there are some salespeople that are at the top for 2 months, down 3 months, up 2 months again. But you see the best one, they are consistent, right? And in order to be consistent 12 months in a year, you need to make sure that you have a strong pipeline. You need to know, your clients, their industry, come out as an expert, as a consultant in their industry. And you need to ensure that you're always learning, right? I mean, till this day, I have my book, top seller in 3 categories on Amazon, and it's still like that didn't mean that I have to cancel my weekly meetings with my mentors,
right,
right?
yeah,
So I'm still, learning every day, and I learn from our BDRs, I learn from my account executives. Be open to that. Don't let that ego, because now you're a, I don't know, top seller author, or you're a top performer, or you're part of the President's Club now. That means you don't need to learn anymore, right?
yes, yeah,
And again, part of it is all about just be open. Sometimes I used to go to other top account executives in our company. I'm like, hey man, I really want to beat you this year, right? So do you mind if I shadow you or something? And you
right,
would be surprised. Some people are like, hey, you know what? And obviously, your friends and all that, and still you're having that healthy competition. And they're like, sure, man, like, absolutely, right? So that was another reason that really helped me a lot when I were an account executive, that I just wanted to be the best. So trying to work 2 hours earlier, leaving like 2 hours later, right? And people are like, oh man, like you're really working. And I'm like, well, like that's the truth. And in my
right,
book, I use the example again in soccer that, we have players like, Ronaldo, Messi, that they have been dominating for 15 years, 16 years. Why? Because not only they love what they do, but that discipline, that commitment, showing up the first person in the practice, being the last person leaving the practice, right? And always trying to get better and better and better, by practicing, exercising and all that. So it's the same thing in sales. You want to be good at cold calling, lots of practice. You want to be good at doing demo, lots of practice, right?
yes. Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head. And everybody's looking for the quick fix, right? The magic formula when, like you said, it really comes down to showing up consistently, emphasis on, and doing the work.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Doing the work, as you said, beautifully, doing the work. And, there's no shortcut.
Yeah.
But some salespeople, they think they can just hit their quotas or be a top performer. It doesn't work like that, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's sort of the harsh reality that we all have to eventually come to realize that all the tips and tricks and things that everybody, tries to get you to buy into, when it really comes down to it, those are add-ons. But at the end of the day, in any industry, whether it be in sales, whether it be in sports, whether it be in entertainment, and just about anything, right? It's the people who win are the guys who just show up and whether they want to or not, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, like, again, it's so important to have that discipline. And I would say when people ask me, what's one thing that you tell any salespeople out there, that one, factor, one quality that they should have? And I would just tell them discipline.
Yes. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Navid, you have shared so many interesting things. I have learned a huge amount. I've been writing notes like crazy. How can people connect with you? Where can they find you? I think a lot of people will want to reach out to you.
Yeah, that's a great question. The first thing is make sure to get a copy of this, How to Become a Sales Master, which, by the way, the entire proceeds for this book is going to a charity in Ukraine.
Oh, nice.
Yes. And aside from that, you can connect to me through LinkedIn,
Okay.
Navid Momeni. And also you can send me an email to navid.momeni@salesgroupglobal.com.
Okay.
I can share my contact information with you, Jane, as well. And
Great.
yes, LinkedIn and, my email. And I'm always open, to help people.
Okay. Well, I'm going to make sure all of those connections and links are in the show notes. And of course, they'll be over on our podcast website. And I would really encourage anybody who's involved in sales, either, actually as an account executive or supervising other people, definitely take advantage of all the resources that Navid has to share. So thank you so much for joining us today, Navid. I really appreciate your taking the time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jane. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I wish you the best, and especially all the salespeople out there.
Thank you for tuning in to A Seat at the Table. If you enjoyed this episode or learned something from it, I'd love to hear about it. Your feedback powers this show. If you'd like to support the show, please hit the subscribe button so you never miss an episode. Also, share episodes you found valuable on LinkedIn or other social media and call out your biggest insight or takeaway from the program. And don't forget to tag me, Jane Singer. I love seeing which episodes you liked best. And if you have time, please leave a review on any of the major podcast channels. Also, don't forget to check out our website, seatpodcast.com. That's SEAT podcast.com. You'll find all kinds of bonus content there, including free ebooks, discounts on apps and other products, as well as a preview of upcoming podcast episodes. You can also send a message with any thoughts, feedback, or suggestions there, and yes, I will read them. Thank you for joining me today and supporting the show. I'm Jane Singer, and I'll see you in our next episode of A Seat at the Table.